To crochet a pair of the wonderful tinsel socks, you will need 1 ball of West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply in a brand new colorway called Vintage Tinsel. You will need 2 sizes crochet hook, one 3mm, one 3.5mm, scissors, tapestry needle, and 3 stitch markers, each one in different color. Before we start, let me tell you first how the socks are constructed. So they are top down, which means we will start working from the leg, then move on onto the heel flap, heel turn, gusset, and then we continue all the way down to our toes, where we will decrease 4 toes. The socks on the foot, I work half-half. So on the sole, you've got half trebles, and on the top of your foot, you've got the V stitches that are also worked in the leg. See, so this is the top of the foot with the little toes here. And then on the sole, you've got half treble, and you can see the joint here, which is wonderful because it's just at the bottom of your foot, so no one will ever see. Let me show you the heel turn. So this is a wonderful heel turn here. This is our heel flap. And the gusset, you see, there's a decreasing of gusset. So the leg is worked in V stitches. We start our work with the bigger crochet hook and chainless foundation. The rib is worked afterwards. So when the whole sock is completed, we work the rib afterwards. But first, let's start with chainless foundation. So let me show you how it's done. Get your hooks and your yarn ready. I'll be making the smallest size, which requires me to make 36 chainless foundation double crochets. I am working in UK terminology. So to make the foundation double crochet, you have to start with a slip knot. Grab your bigger hook, which is the 3.5mm. Make 2 chains. If you turn your work on the side, you can see that each chain has a bump. You see, there's a little bump here. What we're going to do, we're going to insert a hook into this bump. So into this bump at the back of our chain. Insert your hook, yarn around the hook and pull it through that bump. 2 loops on hook, yarn around the hook, pull it through 1 only. And then yarn around the hook and pull it through both. So that's our first chainless foundation double crochet made. You see, this is the front and this is the side. We will keep our work on the side. So now you can see you've got 2 strands. So you've got 1 strand here and 1 strand at the back. So if you look, if you turn your work to the back, you will see you've got 2 strands here. So insert your hook under those two strands. So this is at the back of your chain. Grab your yarn and pull it through. 2 loops on hook, yarn around the hook through 1, and yarn around the hook through 2. Now again, we're gonna turn around, so right at the back you can see this better now. You can see this loop. You see there's a little twist here. So these are the 2 strands that we need to insert a hook into. So underneath the, oopsie daisy, underneath those 2 strands, you see, there we go. And then grab your yarn and pull it through. 2 loops on a hook, yarn around the hook through 1. 2 loops left and yarn around the hook and through both of those loops. And 1 more time. So you see, so we've got gorgeous double crochets. Again, turn it to the back. You can now really see how visible it is. The lovely little 2 strands, so the kind of nice twisted, almost like a twisted loop. So again, we're going to insert a hook under both of those loops and then yarn around the hook through this loop. 2 loops on hook, yarn around the hook through 1, and yarn around the hook through both. So we will continue to do this until we have 36 double crochets all together. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. When you finish all your chainless foundation double crochets, you need to change the hook to 3mm now. So we need to join our work now to form a loop. We will join it with a slip stitch to the first chainless foundation double crochet that we have made. You can place a marker here if you wish to denote the beginning of your round, but the round is joined, so you won't need to really. And we start by making chain 3. So this chain 3 counts as 1/2 treble and chain 1 space. So now what we have to do is we have to make 1/2 treble into the same stitch as the chain 3. So to make a 1/2 treble, yarn around the hook into the same stitch, so insert your hook into the stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through, 3 loops on hook, yarn around the hook and pull it through all 3, and that's your 1/2 treble. So now what we're going to do, we're going to miss the next stitch and we're going to work a V-stitch into the next stitch. So a V-stitch is 1/2 treble, chain 1, 1/2 treble, all into one stitch. So yarn around the hook into the next stitch, so miss this one, into the following one, grab your yarn and pull it through, 3 loops on hook, yarn around the hook and pull it through all 3. Then chain 1 and make 1 more 1/2 treble into the same stitch. So that's our 1 V-stitch made. So now again, miss the next stitch and work a V-stitch into the following stitch. Miss the next stitch and a V-stitch into the following stitch. So V-stitch is 1/2 treble, chain 1 and 1/2 treble, all into one stitch. Miss the next stitch and work exactly the same thing. So continue to repeat this until you reach the end. Now that we have finished our first round, we need to join it by slip stitching to the second of the 3 chains at the beginning. So one chain is here, the second one is here. Insert your hook into the center of it, making sure you grab 2 strands of this chain, purely because it doesn't stretch too much. So slip stitch, and now we are ready for our next round. So our next round is chain 3. Again, it will count as 1/2 treble and chain 1 space throughout, and we're going to work a 1/2 treble into the very first chain space, you see. So we've got our V-stitch here and our chain space is here. So we're going to work 1/2 treble into this chain space. So insert your hook into the space, grab your yarn and pull it through, and pull it through both. So now we will work 1 V-stitch into every single V-stitch. So the chain 1 spaces of every single V-stitch, this is where we will work our V-stitch. So this is our next one. So 1/2 treble, chain 1 and 1 more 1/2 treble into the same V-stitch. See? And again, into the next chain space of the next V-stitch and work a V-stitch into it. And again. So we're missing all those stitches in between. You see, there's 2 stitches always in between, because our V-stitch is constructed of 2 stitches and 1 chain space. All the way along. So you will work this all the way along, slip stitch it, again to join your round, slip stitch it to the second of the 3 chains at the beginning, and then work in your V-stitch round again. So you have to work in your V-stitch until you all together have 21 rounds. I'll see you in 21 rounds. So that will be the leg section of our sock. So that will be this part here. So now that we have finished 21 rows of our leg, we are now ready to create a heel flap. Heel flap is worked in rows in double crochets only. So because I'm making the smallest size, I will work 1 double crochet into the next 18 stitches. The chain spaces in between our V stitches do not count as a stitch, so we will only work into the half treble. So we start with 1 chain, then 1 double crochet into the stitch at the base of this 1 chain, so that's our first stitch. Miss the chain 1 space, 1 double crochet into the next stitch, 1 double crochet into the following stitch. Miss the chain 1 space, 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Miss the next chain 1 space, and again 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Miss the chain 1 space, 1 double crochet into the following 2, and you do that for the required amount of stitches for whichever size you are making. There we go, we should be okay now. Let me have a look if I have 18. Perfect. So now on my 18 stitches, again I'm making the smaller size, I will now work back and forth in rows. So I will chain 1, I will turn, and I will work on my 18 stitches. So I will work 1 double crochet into the next 18 stitches, and then again I will turn, chain 1, and do another row. And I have to do, so now for my size I have to make 16 rows of double crochet in total. For other sizes it's 18 or 20 rows. So I will meet you back here when all the rows have been worked. So when we finish our heel flap, our work should look like this. So now we are on our right side, ready for our next row. On the next row we will be turning the heel, which is what we'll be doing here. So this is the bottom of your sew. To make our first row, of course you will follow your pattern to know the exact number of stitches you need to work over, but I'm working on a smaller size, and I need to now work so now what I need to do is chain 1 and work 1 double crochet into the next 9 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So that's my 9 stitches. Let me just make sure. Yep. So now what we're going to do is work double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. So let me show you how it's done. We're going to insert a hook into the next stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through. Insert your hook into the following stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through. We have 3 loops on our hook. Now yarn around the hook and pull it through all 3. And that's your double crochet 2 together. Now we have to work 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And we're going to turn, leaving all those stitches here unworked. For the next row, we're going to chain 1. We're going to work 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches, so starting with the first one, 1 and 2. Then double crochet 2 together. And then 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And now we are going to turn again. So now what we're going to do again is chain 1. We're going to work to 1 stitch before our little row ends. So for me at the moment is 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to work into 3 stitches. So I stop before the row, the little step, you see? So I've got 1 stitch left and the little step here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work double crochet 2 together, inserting 1 leg of the stitch into this stitch here and 1 leg of the stitch into this stitch here. So you see, I'm going to join this step together. So double crochet 2 together, insert your hook into the next stitch. Then insert your hook into the next stitch, but on this row here. 3 loops on hook, yarn around the hook and pull it through all 3. You see, and we're creating a little curve already is forming. You can already see it. Yeah, we are creating a little curve here. So now 1 double crochet into the next stitch and turn. So again, one chain and then 1 double crochet into 1 stitch before a little step here, you see? So chain 1, 1 double crochet into every stitch before until last stitch is left, and 2, 3, 4. You see we've got 1 stitch left here, and again we're going to work double crochet 2 together over this stitch and this stitch here. So this is how we are joining our rows, and we are creating a gorgeous little heel, a gorgeous little curve for our heel. Then 1 double crochet into the next stitch and turn. You can really see this little heel is curving already. Okay, so again, chain 1, 1 double crochet into every stitch until you have 1 left. And again, double crochet 2 together over this stitch, the last stitch, and the next stitch on this row here, on the missed row. And 1 double crochet into the following stitch. And turn again. And repeat exactly the same thing. So 1 double crochet into every stitch before the last one. So leave the last one unworked. And now we've got 1 last stitch, and we're going to join them with the stitch row below. Oops, that's a tight stitch. 1 and 2, and 1 double crochet into the next stitch. Turn. See, the curve is really forming here. You can really see it forming. Again, chain 1. And exactly the same thing. So 1 double crochet into every stitch until the last stitch. So leave the last stitch unworked. There we go. We've got the last stitch. So 1 double crochet 2 together over this stitch and the stitch here. 1 double crochet into the last stitch. And we've got 1 more row to do. So you see, so I've got still this to work. So chain 1, 1 double crochet into every stitch to last. One double crochet into the last one, and we have completed our heel turn. See, this is a gorgeous curve. So this is where our heel turn. So you see your sock looks like this. So you've got your heel flap here, you've got your leg here, and your heel turn. So now we are ready for picking up for our gusset. So half of the sock is work in half trebles, and the top of the socks is work in these stitches, but we first need to pick up for our gusset. So our gusset is work in half trebles. For this you will also need your stitch markers, so make sure you grab your stitch markers, make sure they are two different colors. It will really help. So now that we are ready, we can work the stages of our heel turn. So chain 1 and work 1 double crochet into every stitch of the heel turn. So now what we have to do, we have to work double crochets along our heel flap. For my size it's nice because it's a smaller size. The pattern will state how many you will need for your size, but it's roughly 1 double crochet per every other row. So let's say we start with this one. So 1, going to miss this row, 2, say 3, miss this one, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1 last here. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to place a stitch marker on the last stitch of this heel flap. And now what we're going to do, we're going to work into the V stitches of our foot, of the top of the foot. So we're going to work a V stitch into every single V stitch. So omit all the stitches in between, just work a V stitch into every single V stitch. 1, so into the chain 1 spaces of the V stitches. So that's the top of our foot. So now we come to the second heel flap edge, and again we have to pick up the same number of stitches on this edge. So we're going to work 1 stitch, and now on the first stitch we're going to place our marker. So on a stitch just made. So now I've got 8 more stitches to pick up. So 1, I already have 1, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Let's have a look. Let's do 9 here. There we go. So we've got 9. So we now come to the end of our round. This is where we have started. We're going to slip stitch to our first double crochet. Now what you can do, you can place the marker here to denote the beginning of your round if you wish, but I tend not to, because we're working in joined rounds. But if you find it more useful, use your third marker for that. So now we are ready to decrease our gusset, and don't forget, on the sole of the foot we will work in half trebles, and on the top we will work in the V stitches. So chain 1, so 1 half treble in the first stitch. So now we're going to work 1 half treble into every stitch until 2 stitches before the first marker. So 1 half treble into every single stitch. Oops, there we go. Oop, I was going too far, you see. So now we stop 2 stitches before the marker. So what we have to do, we have to place our decrease here. So we're going to work a half treble 2 together. So let me show you how it's made. Yarn around the hook, into your first stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through, 3 loops on hook, yarn around the hook into the next stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through, 5 loops on your hook, now yarn around the hook and pull it through. There we go. So that's your half treble 2 together. So now we're going to work 1 half treble in a stitch with the marker. So remove your marker, work a half treble into that stitch, place the marker back on that stitch just made, And now we are going to work our V stitches until we reach our next marker. So we're working in V stitches into the chain 1 spaces of the V stitches that are already there. So missing all the stitches in between. There we go, almost there. Okay, so we come to our next marker. And what we have to do is work 1 half treble into the stitch with the marker. So remove your marker, work half treble into the stitch, place your marker, and now what we have to do is half treble 2 together over the next 2 stitches. So yarn around the hook into your next stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through, 3 loops on a hook, yarn around the hook into your next stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through, 5 loops on a hook, yarn around the hook and pull it through all 5. And now work 1 half treble into all the way to the end, and then slip stitch to your first half treble. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, slip stitch. And the next round is just plain round, which means we will chain 1, we will work half treble to our first marker, V stitches over our V stitches, half trebles into the stitches after the marker, moving the markers as we work. We're not decreasing at all, it's just a plain round all the way around. Okay, so do that round and I'll meet you here. So when you finish this round, your work should look like this. So on the next one we are going to decrease. So we're going to alternate our rounds. So 1 round decrease, next round plain. So on your decrease round you will work to 2 stitches before this marker and decrease 1 stitch. Then you will work all the way to this marker, then decrease 1 stitch after this marker, then slip stitch to end. And remember, in between these markers here, at the back of the foot here, you are working in half treble. On top of the foot, you are working in V stitches. So it's quite easy to remember that, because the top is V stitch, bottom is half trebles. Okay, I will see you when all the gussets is decreased and you are back to your original number of stitches. Just FYI, when you're counting your stitches, make sure you do not count the chain spaces in between the V stitches, only the stitches themselves. So when you finish your gusset decreasing, your work will look like this. So again, you've got half trebles on the sole of your foot and V stitches at the front. Keep those markers in place because they are very useful to tell you where the half trebles are and when the V stitches are. Also, they'll be wonderful and easy for the toe decreasing. So now we will work on our foot. So we will work straight without any increasing or decreasing anymore. So what we're going to do now is I've slip stitched my round, chain 1, work 1 half treble to the stitch with the marker. So work 1 half treble into every stitch to your first marker. Remove the marker, work 1 half treble into that stitch, replace the marker, then work 1 V-stitch in every single chain 1 space of the top of your foot. Oops. Oops. Stitch with marker, then remove your marker, work 1 stitch here, replace your marker, and work 1 half treble to end. Slip stitch to first stitch. So that's how you will you work your foot throughout. So half of the stitches are half treble and half of them are V stitches. So work this way until your foot has the desired length, and I'll meet you back here. So now that we have finished our foot, our sock is now our desired length on our foot, we can start decreasing for the toes. The toes are worked in double crochets and in continuous spiral. We also want this marker here to be the beginning of our round. Our round starts here originally, but we want this to be the beginning now. So what we will do, we will work 1 double crochet all the way to this marker. So 1 chain and 1 double crochet into every single stitch, sorry, to our first marker. Okay, so we come to the stitch with our marker. So we're going to remove the marker, work 1 double crochet into that stitch and replace the marker. Now we're going to work 1 double crochet into every single stitch of our V stitches. Again, the chain 1 spaces do not count as a stitch, only the actually 2 stitches on the side. So 1 double crochet into every single stitch. So not the chain 1 spaces, but the actual stitches themselves. Here we go. So now we come to our second marker, and again we need to remove the marker, work that stitch and replace the marker. And now we're going to work back to our first marker, because this is where we want the beginning of our round to be. So we're going to work, so we're not going to slip stitch anything or chain 1, we're just going to work straight through. This will be our beginning of a round until our first marker, really, because that way we are in a correct position and we can start decreasing for our toe. Let me just quickly get back to that position. There we go. So again, if we remove the marker, work the stitch, replace the marker, and now we are in a correct position to start decreasing for our toes. So we will place 1 decrease on each side of our markers. So we also decrease every other round. So next round we will decrease, the following round we will not. We will just work a round of straight double crochet, moving the markers as we go. So let me show you how to decrease. So insert your hook into the next stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through, 2 loops on a hook, insert your hook into the following stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through, 3 loops on hook, yarn around the hook and pull it through all 3. So that's our first decrease. So now we have to work 1 double crochet to 2 stitches before the next marker. So 1 double crochet into every single stitch until the next marker. Well, two stitches before the next marker. By the way, I have switched my sample to a medium size because that's where I was at the toe in my medium size sample. So that's why if you're wondering why I have so many more stitches now. 2 stitches before the marker. There we go. So we've got 2 stitches before the marker, and again we have to work our decrease. 1, 2. Remove our marker. Work 1 double crochet into that stitch. Replace the marker. And now decrease again over the next 2 stitches. And then work 1 double crochet to 2 stitches into our beginning marker. There we go. So again we're going to decrease here. We're going to remove our marker, work a double crochet, replace the marker, and that's our round complete. So this is our decrease round. So on the next round we will just work in double crochet without any decreasing. So all you have to do is obviously move the markers up as you go, as we have been doing before, and you will alternate those rows. So you will have a decrease row, normal row, decrease row, normal row, until you have the required number of stitches left for your sizes. For me at the moment I have a medium size, so that will be 20 stitches altogether, so 10 on each side. Okay, I see you back here in a minute. When we complete that lovely toe, it should look like this. It should be nicely in line with our heel, and now we are ready to sew it up. So leave yourself a good tail. You can take off all the markers now. Pull that yarn through to that loop, and you can either sew it on top, or you can turn the sock inside out and sew it that way, which what I will do, making sure that all my, don't mind the ends, I have them weave them in yet. There we go. We want it nice and straight. It's very important, because if you sew up your toe wrong, it will be a bit askew, and when you're wearing it, it will not be nicely in line with the heel. So make sure you should be all nicely in line. Okay, so just stitch by stitch. So what I usually do, I insert my needle under both these of the 2 stitches opposite each other, and then into the following. So each stitch has to be worked. Make sure you don't pull the yarn too tight, because you don't want your seam to be hard. You want it nice and soft. If you wanted a lot softer seam, then sew up your socks from the front, from the right side. That will give you a bit softer seam. But this seam, I find this seam very comfortable. Again, it's up to the wearer. Just do a little one here, and then I can weave in this end. So weave it into the top. Oops. And then back. Cut it off, and now we are ready for our cuff. Okay, let me just turn it back again. Has given you a lovely shaped toe. Okay, so now we are ready for our cuff. To work our cuff, place your sock with the right side facing out. Join yarn to the first stitch to the top of your chainless foundation with a 3mm hook. Work chain 2, which counts as 1/2 treble, then work 1/2 treble into every single stitch, so every single top of the chainless foundation all the way around. So when you finish that, join with the slip stitch to the top of the chain, the beginning chain 2, and now we are ready to start our front post and back post half trebles. chain 2, which counts as 1 half treble, and now we're gonna start with a front post half treble. So yarn around the hook, insert your hook from front to back to front around the post of the next stitch. Grab your yarn and pull it through. 3 loops on hook, yarn around the hook and pull it through all 3. So that's your front post half treble. So for the back post half treble is yarn around the hook, insert it from back to front to back around the post of the next stitch, yarn around the hook and pull it through. 3 loops on hook, yarn around the hook and pull it through all 3. And now we're gonna do again yarn around the hook. So that one is a front post half treble. Around the front of the post and pull it through. Now we're gonna do a back post. So yarn around the hook, from back to front to back, around the post of the next stitch. Pull your yarn through and pull it through all 3. Again, so now we're gonna do a front post, yarn around the hook, from front to back to front around the post of next stitch. Continue doing this until you reach the end, and at the end you will slip stitch. So you have to repeat that round all together 3 times, and your little cuff will look like this. So that's a really nice cuff. It goes a bit of a stretch and it goes nicely with the chainless foundation. Thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I really hope you enjoy crocheting the lovely tinsel socks. Thank you so much. Happy crocheting!